Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here. Well, I've got very unfortunate news to share with you, and that is this. Apple, as in who we use on our computers and laptops and multiple other areas and our phones, has decided to get in bed or merge, if you will, with the tyrannical dictator Republic of China president. That is Xi Jinping. Now let me take you straight to the report, but it's on observer.com and it's headlined, Apple grants China full control over iCloud data and the timing could not be worse. Now the report states that on Wednesday, Apple officially handed over its iCloud operation in China to a local state-run company along with all encryption keys to unlock local users' data. The switch will give the Chinese government unfettered access to the photos, emails, and contacts of over 240 million iPhone users in China. Now, the report down a little bit further details that this tightened cyber law also has forced Apple to block Apple News in China and to quietly, which under the radar, delete VPN applications. That's why I say get on a VPN, proxies that allow China users to bypass internet censorship from the local iOS app store. So in other words, let's quietly also delete the VPN apps. So there's no more going around the system where you can bypass censorship with VPNs and proxies. That's what they do. But now Apple has quietly deleted that and given all the data over to Xi Jinping. This is by far crossing so many lines because Xi Jinping, he has murdered and imprisoned journalists more massively on a monstrous level, if you will, more than multiple other countries. Not only that, but there is a high amount of persecution against the Falun Gong religion and Christianity religion, which I'm going to show you in a moment. Not to mention that Xi Jinping has murdered, if you want to call it murdered, or a lot of his military generals have been purged, mysteriously committed suicide or died or, well, some kind of freak accident. Well, this is the kind of dictator that Apple has decided to get in bed with and go into a partnership to share data. I'm not even kidding. Share all the data with the president there of the Republic of China. But he's not the only one in bed with China. Check out this report. This is an earlier report from 2016, and I reported on it back then, but I want to bring it back up because it's important. This report is found on Breitbart, and it's titled, Mark Zuckerberg Meets with China Propaganda Czar. Why is this important? Why do we need to know that? Because the entire reason that fake book Mark Zuckerberg met with the czar there was so that he could bring censorship of Facebook. He wants to bring his Facebook platform to China, but follow all the censorship rules of the communist dictator, which would include anyone who is against the Chinese communist regime and anyone who stands against their way. This is why they're known for murdering journalists. Check out this report, which details some of the journalist murders. This is on Reporters Without Borders, and this was put out June 2017, and it's titled, China Still the World's Biggest Prison for Journalists and Citizen Journalists. Now, this report goes on to detail that China's prisons currently hold more than 100 journalists, citizen journalists, and bloggers, including a Nobel Peace Laureate and 3 winners of the Reporters Without Borders. Although the famous video of Tank Man, an icon of the Chinese Spring, is now 28 years old, it has yet to be broadcast on Chinese television, nearly 3 decades after a crackdown that almost certainly left more than 1,000 persons dead. The Chinese regime continues to keep a tight lid on freedom of speech and the freedom to inform. So we are dealing with massive censorship in China. This is something everybody here in America knows. And now we have not only Mark Zuckerberg in bed with China, but Apple. And Apple, their entire reason for doing this, if you read the article that I showed you earlier, is to say because they want to give more freedom of speech. What? Like really, Apple? Get a hold of yourself. No, you're doing it for more money in your pocket, and you're doing it to get in bed with the left. I don't have any other reason other than that, because hey, it sure ain't about freedom of speech when you're giving full control, if you will, to a Chinese dictator who kills his people, imprisons his people, and keeps things on the internet from his people. I see a big problem with that. Apple and Facebook. Another reason why I've also warned that Facebook has been slowly incorporating and slowly bringing Chinese style censorship to Facebook. And we're even getting it on the Google platforms now, as you can see, with the huge push recently to strike channels and unstrike channels and restrike channels and pull them off and re-put them up. It's because people like you, and I love all of you, are fighting back on so many levels. Please don't stop. Please make your phone calls to YouTube and make sure they're not striking your favorite news reporter online, or journalist or blogger, or whoever it may be, because we cannot handle and deal with these kinds of mergers like Apple and China. I'm ready to get rid of all my Apple stuff at this time. But these kinds of mergers are very, very bad. When you say, let's give you a merger so you, Chinese dictator, can have more control over your Chinese citizens. And that's what they've done. Obviously, Apple's not giving them control over the American data, but over the people in China. But we need to stand up for such censorship, because again, remember how much land the Chinese own here in America. Remember how much pull China has in our politics because of the amount of trade that we do with them, because of the amount of land that they own here in America. We have to pay attention to what's going on in China. Now, let me just show you some of the persecution levels that people are experiencing over in China. Check out this report from a government UK website. It's back from 2016, I believe, but it gives you a good assessment of that country and what they're doing. But it's titled Country Information and Guidance, Chinese Christians March 2016. Now, this one details the Open Doors country profile of China, in which they had noted, while in most religions, Christian activities are being watched rather than controlled, in Tibet and Xinjiang, Christian converts experience greater control by governments and family. Also, the Open Doors Worldwide Watch List of 2015, and I'm going to show you the current one too. Christians from Muslim or Tibetan background face more violence. Family, friends, neighbors not only put pressure on them to reconvert, but sometimes also resort to physical and psychological violence. They can include violent actions like abductions also. Further, it details that in January 2015 Freedom House report, Falun Gong practitioners, Tibetans, and to a lesser degree, Christians, were more likely than in others in that category, victims and subject to long imprisonment of 10 years or more, in which they experienced systematic torture and death while in custody. Some Christians fear that the Chinese central government is testing how Christians respond to pressure. In other words, they're a lot more concerned that that pressure is going to turn into more persecution, which it has and it will, and that's exactly what is going on. Now, let me show you also the Open Door USA report. This is from 2017, I believe, and how Christians are suffering in the country. And I'm going to just read it verbatim. While the distinction between government-registered and non-registered churches used to be a major factor whether or not they were persecuted, this is no longer the case. All Christians are slandered, which seems to support the widely held belief that the Communist Party is banking on a unified Chinese cultural identity to maintain its power. Huge. When converts from Islam or Tibetan Buddhism are discovered by their families or communities, they are usually threatened, violently harmed, and then reported to authorities, in which, spouses are sometimes forced to divorce their Christian partners. And some children are taken away from their Christian parents. Taken away. Imagine that. Even public baptisms are impossible. Even weddings and burials involving known Christians are denied by some of the imams there. There you have it. This is who multiple corporations here in America are getting into bed with. This is who we see rising in the Chinese culture, but it's infiltrating some of our American companies in which they're bowing down head over feet into this communist dictator. Those who have lived under a communist regime know what that looks like. And those who have lived under that kind of tyranny, who escaped here in America to get away from such things, know exactly what we could be headed for. And they are huge people who stand against such regimes. And we should not ever put up with anyone getting in bed with a dictator in order to give information of those under their suppression, that information like Apple is doing. He's giving all of the Chinese citizens information and data over to the dictator there, who imprisons journalists, who imprisons bloggers more than any other country, if you will, allows persecution of other religions. This is simply not something that we should allow. Anyhow, not to mention the fact that he wants to be president for life. I'll throw that real quick up on the screen. But Xi Jinping wants to be president for life. I know Donald Trump even joked about it, which makes me sick. I don't like the fact that he's done that. He's done a few things that I don't like. But one of those is we never bow to the pressure of someone like Xi Jinping. He doesn't deserve it. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning into my channel. Back in 2007, when the stock market looked like this, few people were worried because they didn't know what was going on. But look what happened next. The warning signs were there then, just like they are now. The US stock market has never been higher. Many are saying it will go higher, just like they said in 2007. Are you ready for the fall? Do you know what to do? I know what I'll be doing. I'll be calling Noble Gold. I would be finding out about gold and silver IRAs, and quickly. I would want to make sure that my 401ks and IRAs were not exposed to this kind of collapse in the market. Be on the safe side and call Noble Gold today and talk to them. The number's here.